Unsurprisingly, EA's 4K remaster of the first Mass Effect is a night and day difference from the 2007 original. One look at a side-by-side comparison tells you most of what you need to know about this upgrade. Textures, character models, and effects have all been retrofitted, and everything runs at 60 frames per second or more, though animations do show their ages in places, especially on faces.
Deal with him, but won't they expose my past?
But to find out how this famed but notoriously uneven game plays in 2021, factoring in the gameplay tweaks in the Legendary Edition, I spent 30 hours on a full playthrough. Revisiting an RPG I hadn't played since 2008 turns out to be a fantastic refresher on one of gaming's best original sci-fi universes, and also a reminder of the mechanical weaknesses a lot of us were willing to overlook at the time because of how revolutionary Mass Effect was back then. The story of Commander Shepard and the crew of the Normandy working to stop the rogue Spectre Saren from jump-starting an ancient cycle of galactic genocide holds up amazingly well, and so do its unforgettable alien companion characters. Their personalities come through strongly in their voice acting and dialogue, like when Garrus needs to be talked down from his shoot-the-hostage style of law enforcement. It's legitimately tough to take just 2 of them with me on each mission.
You took him down clean.
Sometimes you get lucky.
On top of that, it's simply astonishing how much world building is crammed into this first game without any of it feeling like a giant exposition dump. We learn the interconnected and complex histories of the Krogan, the Solarians, the Quarians, the Turians, the Asari, the Geth, and more, and all of it is used to build up tension in the uneasy alliance of species that governs the galaxy from the shiny white citadel. When bad blood bubbles up between characters, it all makes perfect sense.
We are not a mistake.
Revelations come at a pace that keeps the energy up, and I've rarely seen a universe feel so thoroughly fleshed out so quickly. And the frequent criticism of the unchecked police power of the Spectres feels relevant today too. Of course, just about every major world you visit contains at least one weighty life or death decision that we know will have repercussions in Mass Effect 2 and 3, including the fates of major characters and even entire species. Behind all of that is Mass Effect's signature morality system, which lets you choose to play Shepard as a truth and justice style paragon or a renegade who gets the job done by their own rules.
Leave him. We need to finish the mission.
It's still a pretty great role-playing system that rewards consistency with more persuasive conversation options, and it's not too rigid. I didn't feel penalized for making my generally law-abiding Shepard knock a few heads when it felt appropriate. Combat isn't much of a highlight. To its credit, the Legendary Edition has smoothed things out a bit with improved aiming, shorter ability cooldowns, a revamped interface, and the ability to direct your 2 squad members individually. And you do get some moments of intensity when you're being pinned down by enemy fire and taking potshots at them. Also, Shepard can now use any weapon regardless of your class, which occasionally comes in handy, but the AI is barely there, to the point where you'll see certain enemies moving in clearly predefined patterns, so they're not exactly tactically interesting fights that really require you to make use of all your squad's abilities. As long as you're periodically updating your squad's gear with a slightly improved but still slow and clunky inventory system, there aren't many battles that are likely to slow you down much. I played on the new default, Legendary mode, which just means you're only prompted to stop and put in upgrade points about half as often, and it still felt like it happened a lot. I preferred this way because most individual points only give you a negligible stat boost. This way you can usually unlock something new every time you level up. The original Mass Effect has a lot more old-school RPG stats than its sequels, but it's not like it's asking you to crunch any intimidating numbers. Just pick which skills of your chosen class to boost and unlock. I do wish there were more room to make my Shepard feel like a build that I chose within my class though, because I had enough skill points to max out nearly everything by the end, and that made it feel a little homogeneous. Another highlighted change in the Legendary Edition is the adjustments to the way the Mako landing vehicle drives. And sure, I appreciate that it's less annoyingly bouncy and not as prone to instant deaths, but that just made me realize that the real problem with the Mako is that nothing you do in it is fun. Combat is incredibly bland because most enemies just basically sit there and shoot at you while you pick them off with 2 boring weapons, and the rest of it is just driving from point A to point B. It's easy to see why BioWare mothballed the Mako in the next 2 games. The Legendary Edition's version of the original Mass Effect updates the first game of BioWare's amazing sci-fi RPG trilogy enough that a modern audience can play through it and enjoy its spectacular story and characters without being asked to suffer much for the privilege. Combat and driving sections are still lackluster, but a universe this dense with rich lore and consequential decisions is a pleasure to come back to and welcome newcomers into. And after replaying, I'm surprised at how much I'm looking forward to diving into the next 2 games. Stay tuned for those reviews. For more on Mass Effect Legendary Edition, check out the first 20 minutes of gameplay, and our roundup of the 10 biggest changes in the new edition. And for everything else, stick with IGN.